Is there anybody there?
We had the Cub Scouts come out, and they put a kid at every toilet in the facility, rang a bell, and everybody flushed everything, turned on the water, just to make sure that everything was going to work.
What's up, Dad Hat Crew, and welcome to another episode of the Dad Hat Chronicles Podcast. My name is Ed, and this week, guys, I am happy to bring you a very specific, very special episode, okay? I met with Jason Michael Ford. Who is Jason Michael Ford? Well, Jason Michael Ford is he's an architect, guys. That's right. He designs ballparks, and he's part of a team that designs ballparks and stadiums and all that. And he designed a very, 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 very beautiful ballpark in Kannapolis, North Carolina. That's right, guys. The Kannapolis Cannonballers. We got into how we both met, how he got into the business of architecture and sports and all that fun stuff. He is a fan of baseball, guys. I want you guys to know. So it makes it even better when someone is such a big, huge fan of sports. He has a very specific team that he follows, which we talked about in the episode. Okay, but before I give you guys the episode, wanted to remind you guys that every Tuesday and Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern time, it is the Dad Hat Chronicles Sports Show. Join us every week. We'll talk football, basketball, baseball, no tennis. Sorry, Mike. And then we have some fun, guys. We really have some fun. So make sure you guys go ahead and do me a favor. Hit the subscribe button on my YouTube channel so that way you guys are always in the know when the show comes up, when I drop some new videos, all that fun stuff. All right, now that I got the business out of the way, let's go ahead and get into the episode. And there you go. Without further ado, I'll give you the episode. All right. Well, guys, thank you for joining me. My name is Ed, and welcome to another episode of the Dad Hat Chronicles. Obviously, like I said, my name is Ed Rivera. I'm your host here. And with me today, I have a special guest for you guys. We talk about baseball. We always talk about, people who work in baseball, right? General managers, the players, GMs, all that fun stuff, right? This time, I'm going in from a little bit of a different aspect here, and we are going to talk to Jason Michael Ford. You are an architect, right, Jason?
Yes.
And you, my friend, you're one of the many people that design ballparks. Now that is cool stuff. So, but we'll get into that in a minute. But I wanted to know, how are you doing today? And first of all, at this time of this recording, where are you recording from, my friend?
I'm actually in Nashville at the winter baseball meetings. They had meetings this year in Vegas and in Nashville. And so I've been lucky enough to have attended both meetings this fall and then now in the winter.
Oh my God, how exciting is that? You get to be at both places. Vegas, which was great weather, I'm sure. Nashville is a great place to have a meeting, right, as well. Home of the Nashville Sounds.
Nashville Sounds, yep. And, really for us, it's just an opportunity to have all of our clients, all of our potential clients sort of in one space. So just prior to joining the podcast, we had a little bit of a happy hour downstairs and meeting folks that we've done ballparks for, and hopefully meeting folks that we'll do ballparks for in the future.
That's cool stuff. So but let's start it with you, right? Let's start to get to a little bit about you. Obviously you're in order to be doing this, you have to have at least some kind of like love for the game of baseball, correct?
Correct.
So tell me, growing up, what was your team, growing up? What team did you root for?
Well, oddly enough, so I grew up in Grand Rapids, Michigan. So right smack dab between the Tigers and the Cubs, at a time where you had WGN Superstation and you had WTBS. So Braves games were on, Cubs games were on. Got to watch, obviously, the Tigers, but that was really before regional sports networks, sort of the infancy, I would say, of cable TV. So, getting to watch the Braves, who at the time were in the National League West. They play the Dodgers, they play the Padres, all of those teams out west, which is sort of interesting when you think about them.
I was just going to say the same thing,
right? Yeah. So, but again, from where I grew up, it was really the Cubs or the Tigers is kind of who you rooted for.
I love it. So it's just you rooted for just the whole game of baseball, pretty much. But those were a little bit the ones that you saw the most, obviously, because of the birth of cable TV and cable networks.
Yeah, and again, you think about the time frame in 1984, so remember it very well.
Mhm.
Padres and the Cubs played in the NLCS, and for whatever reason, I sort of I didn't root for the Cubs. I'm that guy that doesn't root necessarily for the home team.
Yeah.
So I kind of started rooting for the Padres in '84, and then they beat the Cubs. They came back. I think they were down 3-1, came back to win that series, and then lo and behold, guess who they play next in the World Series? The Tigers. So the Tigers ended up sweeping them. I hate to say that, but at the time, as a young boy, my neighbor went to the World Series, brought me back a pennant, and
Oh,
sort of from that moment on, I was locked in as a Padres fan. Don't know why, but I've always been a Padres fan ever since '84. So coming up on almost 40 years now of being a Padres fan.
there's nothing wrong with that, man. I mean, the Padres are that one team, and I'm kind of Padres have gone through this resurgence, right? When it comes to uniforms and style and all that. Like at one point they were the brown and the yellow mustard, and now they're back to it again. Although I gotta say though, I for a brief period of time I did love those navy blue, that kind of like
Yep.
ocean. Those were really nice uniforms back in the day.
Yeah, and those, they did those uniforms actually when they moved to Petco. So again, a little bit of full circle here. I got to work on Petco Park. So again, a dream come true for me. Got to attend the '98 World Series. Unfortunately, I went to Game 3 when Trevor
Not a
Hoffman
good.
gave up a home run to Scott Brocious, top of the ninth. Right? I mean, it would. I think there were over 70,000 people at that game. I've never heard so many people so loud to have Brocious connect with that pitch to go so quiet, and then ultimately, again,
Yeah.
my Padres got swept in the World Series.
Yep. That's it's that one hurts a little. That one hurt. Yeah, I'm sure it did. So yeah, I'm looking here actually at your. I'm on your company website right now, right? And you've done some Citizens Bank Park,
Yep.
for Philadelphia. Our friend Paul Caputo would love to have a conversation with you. Him being a Phillies fan, but you did some college ball as well. Oklahoma, University of Oklahoma, Florida, Mississippi State, and then one and this is where I met you. As a matter of fact, we met at Kannapolis, home of the
Yep.
Kannapolis Cannonballers. I was there with Tim Siegel, who is the groundskeeper for the team, and he goes like, "Do you know who that guy is?" I'm like, I have no idea. I was like, he's the one. He's the architect. He's the one who designed the ballpark. And I'm like, get out of town. So I told him, I hold on a second. So I came straight to you and decided to meet you first. So that was thank you for being so graceful with when I met you. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. And I think working on Petco Park was one of the first ballparks that I worked on.
Mhm.
Obviously, we had a very large team at Populous working on that. Then we kind of kept the same design team, I would say, which did Phillies. And ironically enough, those two ballparks actually opened in the same year, about a week apart, because Padres, there was a lawsuit about the public financing with that ballpark. So during construction, it actually sat with no activity for 2 years. So
Ooh.
that ballpark was supposed to open in 2002. Phillies 2004. They ended up both opening in April of 2004. So it was kind of a fun actually time in my life where got to go to both openers. I think the Padres game was on a Friday, and the Phillies game might have been on a Monday or that following Tuesday. So it was kind of a fun couple of days there. And I think you mentioned kind of where my experiences led me. From there, I kind of fell in love with not only obviously baseball, but just designing ballparks and the
Yeah.
uniqueness of ballparks. And you look at Petco Park, you look at Citizens Bank Park. They're two completely different ballparks in terms of the style of architecture, the playing field dimensions. We built a ballpark in San Diego that was a pitcher's ballpark. The Padres were a small market team. They didn't spend a lot of money at that time on roster contracts, and so they wanted a ballpark that played very big. The great, Larry Lucchino, I learned a lot from him on that project. He talked a lot about, people come, and again, this was post kind of towards the end of the steroid era, I would say, of people come to ballparks because they want to see triples. They want to see inside the park home runs. They want to see things that, that create excitement. And that's what a unique geometry to a ballpark does. And if you look at Petco, you'll see that in the right field where the foul pole is. You'll see that in the Western Metal Building in terms of that being the left field foul pole, and just the dynamic of that, unique aspect that baseball is the only sport that we can really, as designers, impact the dimensions. You can't do that on football. You can't really do that on soccer. Obviously, you can't do that with basketball and hockey. So we really get to impact the game along with the clubs that we work for, and having the visions of really creating something unique every time. And from there, again, working on 2 major league ballparks, having the opportunity then to work at the University of Michigan. So again, a kid growing up in Grand Rapids, having the opportunity to work on a renovation at the time for Fisher Stadium, which ultimately became Wilpon Field. So again, tied back to the Mets and their organization, Fred Wilpon. And so in that sort of moment, that transition in my career of work, from working on very large stadiums to really smaller collegiate ballparks, that gives me the opportunity to work at Mississippi State, which is a very large collegiate ballpark. Mm-hmm. The opportunity to work at the University of Florida, another brand new ballpark in the SEC. And then just that opportunity, again, to evolve into minor league ballparks, which are essentially very similar to, in size and scale to collegiate ballparks. So Kannapolis, I think, still very early in my career, but the team that we had at Populous, that ballpark, what that's done to the city, the organization, the city of Kannapolis, that was just really almost a pinnacle moment for me personally and professionally, because that's just a really great ballpark, a really great place to see a game, and just really proud of that ballpark.
Let me ask you, and something that a couple of questions. First of all, how did you get into the business of like designing ballparks, right? Because I'm sure this is a very unique business, right? And obviously you I see you got your bachelor's of architecture at Kansas State. So like from then on, is that like how you just like progress into that? Like how did you get into designing or being part of a design team of a ballpark?
Right. So I learned probably in 7th or 8th grade that I couldn't hit a curveball.
Yeah.
But that didn't squash my love of sports, my love of baseball. And so I don't know that I ever knew kind of what architecture I wanted to focus on, but having gone to Kansas State, Kansas City really being the sports architecture capital of the world, I knew very kind of early on in my career that I wanted to work for Populous. And so I actually applied to do an internship. My 4th year of college, we do a semester internship. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately for me, the timing of that aligned with the baseball strike. And so Populous at the time was designing Coors Field. Mm-hmm. Coors Field opened, which would have been in 1994, I believe. And so that was kind of, again, I knew that's where I wanted to work, or I thought that's where I wanted to work, working on these, sports projects. Thought it was really, really interesting. And then so at that time I applied, met with them, got an interview, and, ultimately because of the baseball strike, they didn't have an opportunity for me at that time. Mm-hmm. So a little bit of a setback, a little bit of a crushing blow. Ultimately did my internship in Orlando, Florida, which, at the time was where the largest number of folks under 25 lived. And so it was a really great experience for me, a different climate that I had ever been in. Worked in judicial and hospital kind of architecture in that internship. It was all right. It didn't, but it was just a building. And so going back to school for my 5th year, and really focused on hopefully having an opportunity to apply and work at Populous, which when I graduated college, I think I graduated on a Friday and started work on a Tuesday. I mean, that's how eager I was to kind of get in the door and see what I could do.
That's pretty cool. Like you're like, no, I am not messing around. We're at graduation. Let's go. We don't have time to waste.
Correct. I mean, got to pay off those student loans. Got to get rent going. So I was focused on, getting to work.
That's awesome. I love that. And so was then, like you said, Petco Park and Citizens, that was you were part of those were first projects when you started at Populous, or was there another project that was first when you got there?
Well, ironically enough, so when I started in May of '96,
Hmm.
the first project I actually worked on was Nissan Stadium. At the time, it was Adelphia Coliseum, so the home of the Tennessee Titans. So
Hmm.
the Titans were, or the Houston was moving. The Oilers were moving to Houston, or
Oh,
from
wow.
Houston to Nashville, and that was the first project that I was sort of assigned to. And during that process, I actually got a chance to work on the Nashville Arena as well. And then when the Predators came to town, we worked on a renovation for the Predators moving into Nashville Arena, which is now Bridgestone Arena.
Hmm.
So I spent a little bit of time in Nashville, which is kind of kind of funny because I went to the opening game at Adelphia Coliseum at the time, and then while I was here this weekend, I actually went to a game. So first time I'd been to a game in Tennessee at football in like 25 years. So I went to the first game and now went to a game on Sunday. So it's
That
a little bit full circle. And I will say the building looks great. It was really cool to kind of see there's a lot of things there that are original to the building. But after that Tennessee Titans project is when I had again, we were pursuing the Padres, being a Padres guy, that I really kind of put my name out there to say, this is a project that I want to work on.
mhm. That's awesome. So obviously, and again, this is just me, pure guessing right here, that when there is a project of that magnitude, the large scale that it is, I'm sure there is a pretty big team that is assigned specifically to that, right? Do you like at that point, do you get assigned a specific project that you have to do? How does that work? Because I'm sure that it's a pretty big team, right?
Yeah, and I mean, I joked, somewhat this weekend that like in the restrooms, like at the Titan Stadium, I was working on laying out toilets. I was working on laying out stairs for the building. I mean, elements like that you don't think about. The way that that we structure these projects really is you have, a project manager, and then you will have project architects who are responsible for different parts of the building. So
Mm-hmm.
it's as simple as the architecture piece, simple as the mechanical, electrical, plumbing piece,
Yeah.
simple as the structural piece. So we obviously work with structural engineers, mechanical engineers, but we'll assign an architect to oversee the coordination of those aspects of the building. So as all of those things come together in a building, you've got people that are kind of leading those efforts. And then under those folks, you'll have people who are, again, taking direction, laying things out, making things work, all of those things to ultimately design or deliver a set of drawings that the contractor will build from. So you get to that point, you bid it, you get a contractor, and then you go into what we call construction administration, which is basically during construction, the contractor will submit shop drawings, you'll be site visits, all of those things through the completion of a project. So depending on the size of the project, you could have, a collegiate ballpark might have two project architects and maybe a couple of folks working underneath it to, a project like Petco or Citizens Bank Park could have up to 20, 25 people just in our office working on that project at any given time.
That's one, that's crazy, but two, that's really awesome to be part of a project like that. That you're just saying, it's like, yeah, like, listen, and you're right though, right? People don't think about those things, the stairs, bathroom layouts, stalls, things like that, but like everything has to fit in a certain manner in order for you to maximize the full a space in which you guys are working with.
Well, and I think that's really what I love most about what I do is we have a team.
Mm-hmm.
We work with teams. We're constantly kind of in that team mode that you understand how all of that stuff works, where it's just not one person. It takes multiple people to get things done. And so working with sports teams, whether it's professional teams, collegiate teams, you feel like you're a part of that team. When the Padres went to the World Series, I felt like I was part of that team.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I'm not on the field, even though I'm not making decisions in the front office, you still feel part of that because you're all working together for that common goal of constructing and building this building, this ballpark. And so again, it feels more than just a job.
Mm-hmm.
You're not just checking off, working off a checklist to make sure you get the right details and the right sheets into a set. It's really kind of looking at how that building is going to change the lives or impact the lives of not only the people that live in that community, but the people that experience that ballpark on any given day.
Oh, I love it. So let me switch a little bit here, and I really would love to talk about the Kannapolis Cannonballers, right? We love baseball, that's the thing. But what I love about the uniqueness of this ballpark is it's not just an actual ballpark, but it's actually part of the town park, right? So you can walk around, which I ended up doing during a fall a couple of years ago. I went in and I walked around the whole concourse, that project. Walk me through that, because that to me, right, as someone who's not in the business, but like, I see that as a very unique opportunity to not just have people there during the games, but also during the day or during the weekend when there's no games, so the families can walk around. I'm sure that was kind of like a unique opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, it was something that the city from day one wanted to make it a park, wanted it to be open, wanted people to be able to walk the concourse. And it was really important to them that the design sort of, upheld that decision for them to do that. And you think about it all the time. You go to facilities where they're locked up all the time, and people are looking in. I mean, this really had the opportunity for people to experience it, and having with it originally set to open in 2020, that really
Yeah.
was a benefit because they had always intended for it to be open. So with no games in that 2020 season, the team actually was able to open concession stands during the day. On the weekends, have the outfield bar open, and so they were able to generate some revenue in that baseball season of 2020, and it allowed people to come experience the ballpark, not on an event day. When the biggest stress test is on ballparks on any project is that opening day when people have never been to a facility, they don't know where to go, they don't know where their seats are. So we were able to have that ballpark open for an entire year before its really first true event, its first stress test.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, again, that goes back to the city leadership of how they wanted this ballpark not only to be an anchor for their other development, but just keep it open year round. I mean, people would just go out, and again, a time where you want it to be outdoors and order, food, get it and sit in the bowl and just sit there and stare at the field, just look at the field. It was really something that I think is not so much unique to that ballpark anymore because people have seen it, and they know that that's something that's really a benefit to the community. I have people ask me all the time, how many chairs are stolen? How much vandalism do they have? And they haven't had a single theft. They haven't had a single incident of vandalism because people look at the ballpark as something that's theirs in the community. And so they appreciate that. And I think, again, that's a testament to the leadership that led this project.
And you're right, and it's a beautiful ballpark, and I walked around it, and you can definitely tell the love and care that the team puts into that park, because it still looks amazing to this day. I was there, last summer, right? We were there, and it looks absolutely beautiful. Obviously, they're building more, right? They're incorporating more of the entertainment side by the outfield and all that. When you guys, and I want to get back to the stress test, because I that really caught my attention. But when you are designing, do you leave an open spot for for any future buildings or anything like that? Like do you plan ahead a couple of years ahead for any kind of renovations, or is that something that's not thought about?
It is. We think about expansion. We think about different seating types.
Mm-hmm.
So making, the profile of the bowl, the profile of like berm seating so that you can expand seating if you want to. I think really the way of the future, or kind of what we're seeing right now, is that development around the ballpark, incorporating that development so that it really becomes part of the ballpark. And that's really, in most cases, that's where the public-private partnership comes into play. That's where the private investment comes into play on those development buildings around the ballpark. So we, in an ideal situation like Kannapolis, we're always thinking about what kind of mixed use development we can do in and around the ballpark and really try to integrate that into the ballpark. So you just don't have ballpark sitting there and then you build things around that have no relationship to the ballpark. I mean, I think about the Battery in Atlanta and how that was master planned. And so when you arrive and you walk through the restaurants and you walk through that area and then you arrive at the ballpark, all of that is planned. All of that is thought about. And, in collegiate projects, we talk about the recruiting path in terms of how when a student athlete arrives and where they go and what do they see and what's that sequence to really get them to understand how the facility and how the program works. And we also think about that in professional baseball when someone arrives. Kannapolis, again, is a great example. Is you want somebody showing up an hour and a half before the first pitch. so that they park, they walk through the development, they maybe go to a restaurant, maybe they have some drinks, they arrive at the ballpark, they enjoy the game. The games have now sped up with the pitch clock. And then after the game, instead of rushing back home, they do the same thing going back to where they came. So having a couple more drinks afterwards, or going to hear some music, or doing something else to, again, just enjoy that experience. That the experience isn't just 9 innings anymore. It's the portion before and the portion after, and you're really creating just an overall experience that doesn't have everything to do with baseball, but baseball, I think, is at the heart of it.
It's very, very true. And I am noticing a trend into those entertainment areas, and not just for baseball as well. But before I get to that question, I wanted to know, you said something interesting that caught my attention, and you said it was a stress test, right? That's the very first day, opening day for a ballpark. First of all, do you usually attend most of those events that you worked on? And then second, what are some of the things that you look into when you are running those stress tests? When you're there experiencing that aspect of that.
Yeah, we try to be at all of those. I think a lot of times when the building is ready, something happens at almost every park that's called a super flush.
Mm-hmm.
So you think about installing all of the toilets and all of those things, and now for the first time, 5,000 people are using the toilets where they've never done that before. So you don't want that to. Again, that's specifically something you don't want to not work on opening day, right? So Tennessee was a good example of the Titans. We had the Cub Scouts come out, and they put a kid at every toilet in the facility, rang a bell, and everybody flushed everything, turned on the water, just to make sure that everything was going to work in that stress test. But I think, for the actual event, we've seen clients who will have Kannapolis, their first games were college games. They had a couple college games before the Cannonballers actually played, to again just allow to see how the facility worked. These facilities, they're all unique. So every time you kind of can learn something from kind of what you've designed and how to improve that, or find something where you say, this works really well. We want to make sure when we do the next ballpark, we incorporate that. But I think it all comes down to signage, wayfinding, easily getting in and out of restrooms, how the concessions are set up and where the queuing is set up for those. Because baseball, again, unlike any other sport, is unique, because you can have, 17, breaks in action.
Right.
Whereas, at the Titans game this weekend, you had first quarter, halftime, third quarter. And so
that's pretty much
that
it,
building is 3 times. Baseball, people get up, they're more leisurely. You get up at a half inning, you'll get up at the end of an inning. So you don't have as much of a rush to those things. So it's again, it's a more, I think sometimes just a better experience because of that. You're not, I don't have to get up at halftime and get something to eat. I can wait until the 5th inning, 6th inning, or I can get something before the game starts.
It's interesting. You're right. And I never really thought about that, right? You have those super rushes at the events, such as NFL or basketball, right? Or even hockey, right? Because those are per period and per quarter. So you have to go during that time in order for you not to miss anything. With baseball, like you said, it's very unique. There is a break every inning, or every half inning, there's a break. So you can go out and then, like you said, and this just ties up into my next question is, the entertainment side of it. Now it's become not just baseball, but also ballparks have become more entertainment areas, where you guys go and hang out. There's more, not just seating, but there's the bar area, there's the lounging area now. Is that something that that you guys have seen a trend before, or how has that, do you guys look at those trends in your business?
We do, and seating types. I think it was something, again, that with Larry Lucchino in San Diego, we talked about neighborhoods, different types of seating. Minor league baseball in particular really focuses on group sales.
Mm-hmm.
So having different types of group seating areas. You'll see in soccer now they have safe standing areas. So those seating types do a couple of different things, right? They give you opportunities to have a different experience at the ballpark, whether you come with your family, whether you come with friends, whether you're going with, folks from work. So it's, the number of baseball games in particular in a season, there's so many games that it's really hard to go to something where it's the same experience every time. So creating different sort of seating neighborhoods, different seating types, that allows you to have different experiences as you go to games each time. The game is obviously going to be different. You could have a pitcher's duel, or you could have a game with a lot of runs, but having different experiences within the same ballpark is something that people are looking for because they want a little bit of variety throughout the season.
Let me ask you, does the process of designing a ballpark, collegiate or minor league or even professional, the timeline of that, I'm sure that's what a year or 2 years, a couple of years of just design only, and then then after that there's reviews and all that, correct?
Yeah, so there's multiple phases of a project. I think from start to finish, usually about 1.5 to 2 years from design standpoint. And then at different milestones, you'll submit packages that'll get priced, packages that will then get sent to local officials for review, for code review, permitting, all of that stuff. Bid documents then that go out to the contractor so they can bid the project out to subcontractors. So throughout the design phase of, let's say that 16 months, 18 months, there's usually 3 or 4 packages that'll go out on a project too. In bid packages, you could have multiple bid packages. So you could do bid packages for the earthwork, for example, the foundations as one to, what that information is going to be as you're finalizing the finishes in a suite or in a club level. So there can be 2 or 3 bid packages as well that would be, again, sequential to the construction of the ballpark. So ultimately, it depends on the delivery process, and it depends on the timeline of how you do that and what the sequencing needs to be. But multiple design phases and then multiple usually bid packages in a project.
And I'm sure even throughout the whole process, throughout the construction site, I'm sure there has to be some, all right, we got to revisit some of these design things that we thought was going to work is no longer feasible. Let's, that I'm sure that's a fun time for you guys as architects when it comes to that.
Yeah, I mean, that's the time where I think you probably, get your experience of drawing something and seeing it come to reality and seeing it work. I mean, that ultimately is, you've got to draw something that works and that can be built. And so we're working with the contractors at that point to make sure that those things, what is in the field is what was designed, and to make sure that's going to work, not only from a design standpoint, from a safety standpoint, from a code standpoint, all of those things we have to take into consideration.
That's pretty cool, man. Hope you guys enjoy that episode so far, right? Part 1. Now, join me next week as we finish this conversation, right? Jason and I will finish our conversation when it comes to architecture, ballparks, and obviously my famous, not so famous questions. So you guys got to join me next week, okay? Now, a couple of things before I go. Again, I just reminded you earlier in the episode, but I wanted to remind you again, every Tuesday and Thursdays, 9 p.m. Eastern time, the Dad Hat Chronicles Sports Show. We talk everything, guys, not just baseball, but we talk all sports. We have a lot of fun. We even talk about, things that make no sense. That's what makes this so much fun. So what I want you to do is I want you to hit that subscribe button, okay? Hit the subscribe button so that way you are always in the know when it comes to all of the videos, the live shows, all that stuff. Same thing for this podcast, okay? Hit the subscribe button, and then also, last thing, make sure you tell somebody about this episode, okay? That way they'll be able to enjoy it just like you do, okay? Again, 1,000 thanks to Jason for joining me this week. Make sure you guys join me next week as we finish that conversation. All right, so now that we got that part done, let me go ahead and finish this episode with the wonderful, wonderful dad joke of the episode, and here it is. Did you hear about the man who invented the knock-knock joke? He won the Nobel Prize. All right. I see myself out, guys. And until then, keep grinding, guys, and always support the minor leagues. See ya.